OWASP Bangalore meet. And today we have three speakers with us, Asim, Ankit, and Priyanka. And first, we will go live with Asim, who's going to talk about owning your PC with the innocuous USB drive. Now, about OWASP, OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project, which is a community of developers, security testers, security researchers, or QAs, or people who want to contribute to the security community. So here we are, and I'll give it over to Asim so he can take it forward and he can share what he wants to showcase today. Over to you, Asim.
Hi everyone. So let me start with sharing my screen first, and then I would continue with the talk. Uh, yeah. So is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes.
Okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to the talk. So myself Aseem. So in this, So in this talk, I'll be going through how you could create your own bad USB, and that would help you like take over through any of the operating system like be it a Mac or a Linux or a Windows. So just to create a bit of excitement there. So this is the device that we would be configuring to act as a bad USB. So I'd be going through all the steps and then there would be a demo. So before I start with that, uh, a small introduction. So I'm a security engineer at Grofus, and I also make videos about security on my YouTube channel, Hacking Simplified. Otherwise, I tweet about some of the security stuff that I find or I find interesting from other places. I tweet about it as well. And then if I get free time apart from all of these things, so I do some bug hunting or like just doing security checks on government websites. So some of the famous one that I did was one of the one was DigiLocker one. I did it when I was in second year of my college. So there was an IDOR there through which you could leak a billion documents from them. So they acknowledged it and put it on the website. And the other one was a recent one about a hard-coded NPM token I found on a private bug bounty program. So that's the bragging part of it. Now let's start with the outline of the talk. So there would be two parts. So in the first part, I would be covering the prerequisites or the, what do you say, the meat of the thing. And in the second half, I would be showing the demo for the talk. So in the first part, in the like the bad USB attack or the HID part, I would be talking about the device itself, the hardware components of it. And then there would be the software component that would be the reverse shell and basics of Metasploit. So even if these terms do not like, if you are not aware of it, stay with me. I would be explaining all of these. And then I would also show you that where you could get one of these, and it's very cheap, like around $100. So you could get it from a lot of places. I would be showing those as well. So let's start with this. So the first thing is, what's a bad USB attack? So USB is a basically a standard for like, it stands for a universal serial bus, and it's an industry standard for how devices connect with each other. So like there could be like, suppose if the pen drive is a USB device, so it connects a storage device to a computer, and the storage device is whatever is there in the pen drive, and the other end is the PC or the laptop wherever you're connecting it to. Other USB devices could be like your mouse or keyboard. So they act as a human interface device, like humans can interface with the computer through that. And USB acts as the bus for the communication medium. So that's that. So that's the USB part. And bad USB is when you configure these USB to not act like what they were meant to, rather in a rogue manner. So like this is a programmable USB stick. So I could like do program it for malicious thing as well as for good things as well. So, and you could just cover it in a pen drive case and you could pass it on to a friend or whomsoever you're trying to victimize them. So this would constitute a bad USB attack. So it allows the attacker to hack a PC just by plugging this USB into their device. You don't have to do anything. You just have to wait for around 10 or maybe 5 seconds. So this is a scene from Mr. Robot. So I think if because a lot of people are from InfoSec here, so I assume like a lot of people would have seen this. If not, it was a I think episode 6 or something. So this was a bad USB attack where the protagonist of the series, they dropped a lot of USB sticks, and one of the police officers, like, he picked the USB stick and plugged it into his device, and what they wanted was to get access to the police officer's laptop. So once he plugged it, they got the access to the laptop, and through his laptop they got access to the jail system. So they wanted to rescue a criminal from the jail, so they had to do this elaborate scheme. So let's talk about the attack vectors or the actual hardware. So there are 4 of these kinds of things. So the first one that I got to know of was rubber ducky, and it's the like the costliest among all these. But yeah, with cost comes some benefits, like it's highly reliable, and red teams, when they have to do some pen testing, they prefer rubber ducky instead of this cheap DigiSpark one. So the other device is the Teensy USB, which costs around $20, and then the Arduino Leonardo board, so that's around $30. Then this comes the DigiSpark 80 Tiny 85. So 80 Tiny 85 is basically at Mega Tiny 85 chip, so it's a microprocessor number. But that's how you could like Google it and you could get the device from online. So let's talk about the human interface device thing. So human interface devices, any devices that let humans interface with the computer. So like you are using keyboard to type things on the laptop, right? So you are interfacing with the computer through the keyboard. Then there could be mouse, and through mouse, or you use the pointer to move it around the screen. You move the cursor through the mouse, right? Then that could also be a touchpad as well. So these are all human interface devices. So keyboard, mouse, game controller, touch pens, all these are human interface devices. Now let's talk about the software part of the attack. So those two things, like human interface device and the hardware of it, so these two constitute the hardware of the attack. Now I would talk about the software part, and I would also go through the whole like outline of the attack so that you could understand how these components fit into the attack scheme. So reverse shell. So reverse shell is basically once you like put the malicious payload on the victim's machine. So victim machine calls back to the attacker machine and opens a reverse connection to the like victim machine. So the attacker gets a reverse connection from the victim machine to their own system. So that's basically a reverse shell. So I think that's clear. So Metasploit reverse shell is like you could code it yourself, but I prefer using Metasploit because it's a framework in itself which has a lot of payloads. Like if you could see the image on the screen, so it has around 2057 payloads, exploits, 562 payloads, and encoders, evasion tools. A lot of things are there. So it eases the job a lot easier, and you could just like type a few commands. I would show what are those commands, and you could get the job going. So you would have a strong shell on the victim machine very easily. So that's what Metasploit helps. So it's a framework, and yeah, it's quite popularly known as the most used penetration testing framework. It's open source. You could see the code as well. You could test it on like Ubuntu or Mac OS. So I have it on my Mac as well as on my like Linux laptop as well. If you're using Kali, it comes pre-bundled with it. It's a Ruby-based penetration testing framework, and it's very modular. Like everything is a ready-to-use module, so you could use a lot of these just out of the box from it. So now let's piece all of these components together, like how this HID, how this programmable USB and Metasploit and reverse shell, how this all comes into picture. So what happens is this device is programmed to act as a keyboard, and we make a payload through Metasploit. So that payload is like hard coded into this device. And since this device acts as a keyboard, so once it gets plugged into any like operating system or any Windows machine or Linux machine or Mac OS, so the device thinks that it's a keyboard, and so like there's no registration or as such thing. So it could just start writing the commands on the victim machine as is. So that's where like bad USB thing comes, because it is a programmable USB, and you could pass it on as a pen drive after putting a plastic cover or something like those kind of things. So you program it through like your computer, and you program the Metasploit payload into this. And once you plug it into the victim machine, the payload gets executed. So I think that's clear till this point, right? So let's move forward with this. So requirements for this. So you need to have this programmable USB. So I have a link for this. I would be sharing the slides so you could go through that. Then you need to have a Arduino ID. So Arduino ID is basically through which we are gonna like write on this. We are gonna write the payload for this, and then you need to have some creativity so that you could like get the payload going. So anatomy of the attack is again like this acts as a keyboard and it types the payload onto the victim's machine and we get a reverse connection from there. So without this, what you would have to do is like you would have to create the payload and you would have to send it in a phishing link or some kind of thing. But since you have this, you could basically type it on the keyboard on the victim machine. So the demo part. So since like I needed two devices, so I already made a video for this. So I would be showing this and I would be explaining each and every one, like each and every step of that. So that would be easier. So starting with the Windows exploit thing. So first I've programmed this and this is the Metasploit terminal that's opened on my Mac machine. So Mac machine is the attacker machine. So let me pause it later. So yeah, so you could see that exploit. So MSF6 is the MSF console or the Metasploit console. And this is the exploit that I've chosen. So it's the web delivery one. So there, like, so yeah, so the modus operandi for the Windows exploitation thing. So in the Windows exploitation thing, what I've done is I've created a MSF console payload or MSF Metasploit payload, and it's being delivered through web. So once this device gets like inserted into a Windows machine, the Windows machine asks the web server that's running on the attacker machine to download the payload, and then it executes on the victim's machine. So that's what you're going to see here. So this is the attacker machine, and this is the Windows machine. It had been updated, and the Windows Defender was just run before. So as you could see, I was doing it 2 days back at around 1 in the night. So yeah, I think 1 day back. Yeah. So I just ran the scan for that. Now I'm going to insert this on the Windows machine. So you could see the sound comes, and that sound is for that the device is plugged into it. So now there would be a pop-up here, and the Windows are the run command shell would pop up here, and the PowerShell command of the payload that I have inserted that would be displayed here. So you could see that this is automatically being typed through this device. You don't have to do anything. After it has been typed, you just unplug it from there. So on Windows, it's a bit slow machine, so it took some time. So I paused the video for a few seconds, but I guess in 10 to 15 seconds, it like the shell was working and I had a reverse connection there. So you could see it like now I have a reverse connection. So what it's being done here is 192.168.88.235 is the like the victim machine. So Metapreter session 5, because I had already tried a few times back just to be sure that it's all working fine. And then this is the 229 IP. This is my attacker's machine, and 235 is my victim. So a session has been opened onto that. Since I used a PowerShell, so it's showing that current server processes PowerShell.exe. But however, it has also spawned a notepad.exe so that I could actually migrate it. So I would be showing the code for it, and I would also talk why I have done like this migration thing. So like wait for this. I'm just going to show that as well. So successfully migrated into that process. And if I show the sessions, you could see that there's the Metapreter Windows session that's running on my other PC, the victim machine. So if I do connect, so you could see that I got a Metapreter prompt here. Let's wait for this. Okay, so let me show the commands that were being run for this. So this is the, yeah. So this is the Arduino ID. So if you are doing it for the first time, you would have to configure it to like add this library digikeyboard.h header file. So it's not there by default, but yeah, you could easily get the instructions online. Like it's just like you have to copy paste a command and run it here. So it's quite easy. And this Arduino IDE is available for Linux as
Asim,
well as Mac. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. We can't see your demo. We can only see your screen on the Docs Google. So demo
Oh,
is
sorry.
not
I
very
think
clear.
I need to share the whole screen, I guess.
Yes,
Let
that's
me
right.
do that.
You were going in the flow, so I did not disturb you. But then now
Okay,
I
no, you're
think you.
fine, fine.
So if you can showcase the demo once again, that'll be
Yeah,
really good.
I would sure. I don't select. There's only okay. Mm, Desktop one. Let me know if you are able to view the screen. Is the Arduino IDE visible? digikeyboard.h this file.
Yeah,
Yes,
now
it's
it is.
visible now.
And are you able to see the this VLC screen?
We can. We can.
Okay, so fine. I think I have to go with the demo. Yeah. So okay, let me explain. So yeah. Mm. So this is my attacker machine. So this is the Mac PC that I have. So here you could see the MSF console screen. So MSF6 and the exploit is a web delivery exploit. So earlier you could see that there are no sessions active. So that's why I've printed out sessions -i. And this is the Windows machine. And you could see that it has been just scanned. And today it was scanned at like 12:42. And I was doing this at around 1 a.m. Yeah. So it was up to date and the whole scan was done. So it was a protected PC, like it was not an outdated one. So this is the victim machine. So I'll be plugging this device into this machine, and then you could see the command prompt or the Windows R shell popping up, and there the PowerShell would execute. So this sound is of the plugging of the device. So Windows acknowledges that the device has been plugged in. So on Windows, the exploit is a bit slow, so it might take some time there. But on Linux and Mac, it was quite fast. So it could vary on by PC. So you could see the command is automatically being typed there. So the whole payload is being written there. So once it has been written, you could just unplug it. And on my attacker machine, I could wait for the connection to come back. So it took some time. So I took a pause here so that I could like show the command when it was all successful done. So it took around 10 to 15 seconds there. So here you could see that let me pause it when the frame is fine. Okay, yeah. So let me explain what's going on here. So 235 is the IP, like 192.168.88.235. So 235 is the victim machine's IP. So you could see that the second stage or sending stage and some numerical number and the bytes. So that's the payload that's being sent from this machine. As you could see in the third command, like third line, 229 IP of like 229 is being sending the payload to 235, and that 235 is the victim machine. And session ID 5, so it's 5 because I had already done a few experiments before just to make sure that everything was running. Since it used a PowerShell, so that's why it's written here that current server processes PowerShell.exe. But it again in the next line you could see that it spawned the Notepad.exe process and migrated into that. So I'd be showing all these commands and how this was run just after this. Just let me finish with this part. So you could see the sessions. So the Windows session is running. Now I'll try to connect to that. So you could see the Metasploit prompt there. So this is the Arduino IDE that I was talking about. And by default, you don't have this digikeyboard.h file that you need to include for like interfacing with this programmable USB. So it's very easy to install. You just need to copy a command and like paste it into the Arduino in one place. So you could find it online. I thought not to waste my time on that, so I skipped that part. But it's very easy. You don't have to do a lot of things. Then I've defined a working pin. So the light that you saw that was high initially, that was because of that. So there are two functions in like when you're programming this. So there's a setup part and there's a loop part. So loop part basically what the function says itself is that it's looping again and again, whereas setup part is one it's being done only once. So usually the payload that you would see is written in loop so that like if it's not executed once, you could execute it again. However, you could see that there's an infinite loop in the bottom here. So that's to prevent like executing the payload again and again. That's the very anti part of it. So let's go line by line with this. So you need to just know a few commands, and you don't even need to be an expert on it. You just need to know how you could use it. So digital write, so it just sets the pin high, so as to like light the LED. Then there's a function send keystroke 0. It just clears the cache, I think. I don't remember exact function, but it clears the buffer or cache in the device. Then you have to wait for 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds. You could like figure out the value. I figured that 1.5 seconds was fine enough. So what happens is it basically depends on the device. So if the other PC that you are trying to target, if it's a slow device, I would say that you should increase the delay just to be sure that your payload gets executed, because it could happen that you have like executed this payload and whereas your like Windows R prompt was not there. So it's better to like keep a delay and wait for it so that it gets opened and then only your command is being typed there. So the next command opens the like command shell, the run command shell there. So it presses mod GUI left, so Windows key and the R key. So Windows R is basically opening the run command prompt. Then it again waits for that to open. So it waits for 1 second, and then it types this whole command. So this whole command does is, so it basically downloads a payload from the victim's machine, from the attacker's machine. So this is the payload. So it downloads it from the attacker's machine. And you might ask like how you could get this, yeah, this URL, right? So I'll be talking about that as well in just a minute. So after writing that, it presses enter, and this NOP and -w hidden. So -w hidden basically hides the PowerShell window after it has completed. So after this has all been done, it sets the working pin to low so that you get a visual feedback. Okay, now the LED has stopped, so it's probably it has written the whole payload to the machine. So let me show you how you could get this URL from where the payload would be downloaded. So this is my terminal. So this is the MSF console part. So let me, so So I have two handlers here. So handlers are basically commands or predefined commands that would be executed once MSF console or Metasploit is executed. So first it sets the payload to this. So if you're doing it manually and you don't have it all written, so what you would do is you would first start MSF console, then you would copy this and you would paste it there, and then you would choose the target, choose the L host and all L port and all these things. So this is an error. It's because I don't have a database running. So you don't need to mind that. Oh, sorry. Let me copy this. So I've chosen the exploit to be this. And then the second command is set target to. So you might ask what's a target here. So let me show the options. So you could see this is the exploit target. So ID 0 is for Python. So if I do uh, set target to, and if I do show options, so now it would be PSH. So PSH is for PowerShell, and lhost is something other option that you need to set is the local host. So once, because this is whole compiled into the binary, so lhost is the reverse the attacker's machine's IP. So that's why I've set up here as 192 sorry 192.68.88.229, then L port, and this is the payload. So let me copy all these. So you could see, so right now we don't have this lhost and lport. Now since I've set this, so once I show the options, you could see that lhost is set, lport is set. So it's basically how you could any of the module you could use in the Metasploit. So all these options need to be set there. So and then, so auto run script, what it does is it runs a module after the Metasploit connection has been established. And the specific module that I wanted to run was this migrate one. So what happens is since the PowerShell window closes, so it's a unstable process on the Windows machine. So since you need to latch on a stable machine so that it like your session does not expire, it automatically opens a notepad.exe and migrates to that process so that like the Metasploit connection like it remains there. So oh, I forgot to show how it was. So exploit. was the last part. So once you do this, so you could see that local IP. So this is the URL that I pasted there. So you could do two things. Either you could paste this whole command instead of, oh, sorry. So either you could paste this whole command on here instead of this like this small string. Instead of this, you could do this, but you could see that it's a bit lengthy, and since it's a bit lengthy, it would like take lot of time there. So what I do was I just copy this, and I have this partial script that downloads the string and executes it on the attacker's machine. So that's all for this. So before I conclude this, the Windows part, I would talk that how you would be using this to create a payload. So here's a verify thing. So you do this, you click on the verify so that it verifies whether this code is valid or not. So you could see that this is valid. If there would be some error in this code, it would show it here. Like if you have missed a semicolon or something. Then you need to press the upload thing. So after uploading, now you need to plug in the device. So if I plug in, so now I need to plug this device into this, and it would automatically type this out. So let me plug it here. So you note down here. So yeah, you could see that micronucleus done. So once it's done, you could like plug this device out. So now it has this whole code written into its memory, and it would execute like that. So I think that was clear. Let's come back to the slides. So this was the modus operandi for the Windows exploitation, and it's almost similar for the other two as well. So I'll be showing that. These are the Metasploit commands. So these are in the slides, so you could go through them in later. You could do privilege escalations with other payloads. Then comes the Linux exploitation part. So in Linux exploitation, since the payload was very small, what I did was I created a payload and directly wrote it into this device. So it types these command on the Linux terminal, and you could get a reverse connection there. So there is no like downloading the payload from the attacker machine and all those things. So let me show how you could. Let me show a demo for this. Then I would show how you could like create the payload. So I would be creating a payload on my terminal. So this is the Linux demo. So this is the Linux, so ID Linux command. So these are called sketches. So first I have done a verify command, then I'm trying to upload it. So I've done upload. Now I would plug the device into my Mac so that the code gets written onto the device. Wait for a few seconds. So now it's done. Now you can unplug it from there. Now I'll be plugging this into my Linux machine. So this is my Linux machine. So yeah, this is the MSF console monthly. So currently I don't have any sessions active. Once I plug it in my Linux machine, I could get a session here. So there would be a terminal window that gets open, and then that payload would get executed here. So this is the whole payload there. It exits the terminal so that the victim does not know anything, and you could see the metapeta session has opened. So it's the Linux device, sessions I am trying to connect to the ID. So yeah, so that was all the session connection part. So it was quite quick, unlike the Windows machine. So let me show the shell command. So I would be showing the IP just has to verify that, okay, this is the attacker and this is the victim machine. So these all commands are executed on the shell of that my victim machine. So once I execute the IP one, you could easily verify. So you could see that 192.168, 88, and 22 is the IP that I'm getting here on one of the like devices on there, and then the other device is 88.235. And I would run the same command on the terminal of my victim machine so as to verify whether it was the actual IP that I was showing. So to verify my claims, I am just showing these. So you could see that the IP is the same here. So the video is a bit skewed here, but you could see that 235 and that 2224 IP. So let me go through the Linux part. So again, you need to include the dgkeyboard.h header file. There is the key delete that I have defined here. So this is the code that earlier when I did a demo, I found a better code from that. So I copied some parts from there, but the modus operandi remains the same. So first you set up in mode. You could skip this. It's just a visual confirmation that the code has started executing. And here you could see that it's being run in the setup one and not in the loop one. So setup one is like guarantees that it's only executed once. Here I have set a delay of 200, so it's 200 milliseconds. That's equivalent to zero point 0.2 seconds. Then you set the pay like data write one high. So one high is basically setting it as high. High is setting it as on. Then you are sending a keystroke to delete to clear the cache. Again, you are doing a delay. Delay is very important because every time you do a keystroke sending or you do an operation on the victim machine, you might want to wait for the command to get executed there. Then I am doing a Alt Control T. So Alt Control T for Linux machines opens a terminal. So that's what is being passed here. Then I'm pressing the Enter key. I'm waiting for 1 second for the terminal to open. Then I'm passing the echo command as you could see there. And then this is the string that's being passed. So I would show how you could generate this. And it's being passed to base64 decode and it's being written to a file in the temp directory mshell. So yeah, I pressed the enter key there and waited half a second for that to get executed. Then you could also do a println. Println basically does the enter key or new line. It adds a new line. So there are three ways to send keystrokes. So send keystrokes, hence one keystroke. Print writes on the screen there. Println also does the same job, but it also appends the enter. So this part is redundant. I think I should have removed this here. So after I have written this payload into the mshell temp folder mshell file, so I'm changing its permissions to executable. So chmod 755. So these are basically Linux commands. You don't need to have any expertise on like hardware hacking as such. Then I'm running it as noohop. Noohop is and as an ampersand. So ampersand allows it to run in the background, and noohop ensures that once you have closed the terminal, the shell continues to get running in the background. So if you remove this noohop and you like exit from the terminal session, it would automatically get disconnected. Then I pass exit command, enter. So once you do exit for the first time, it shows that background jobs are running. So I'm doing exit again on the terminal so that like the terminal session gets closed and the victim is not any wiser. So this is all. Let me show how you could get this payload string. So I'm using another tool from the Metasploit framework. So it's a MSF Venom. So yeah. So MSF Venom, what it does is it helps to create the payloads. So I am using the payload Linux x86. x86 is for the 32-bit machines. So 32-bit payloads would easily execute on 64-bit machines as well. So just to be on the safe side, I'm using this. Then I'm running the Metapreter reverse TCP. So you could as well use as reverse HTTP or HTTPS. I think those would be like better. HTTPS one would be better. I use reverse TCP because I have been using it for a long time. So you set the L host and L port, all these parameters into the binary that's about to be made, and then you pass on the -f, the parameter that the format of the output. So ELF is the executable format for the Linux, and I'm piping this into base64 so that I get a base64 output, because base64 is basically that could be typed through a keyboard. Because if I don't pass it through base64, there could be some characters that would not be able to type because it's a binary file, right? So this is the string that you would get, and like you could change the LOS and L port, and you could replace this string. All the rest command like till here you need to replace till here. Sorry. So you need to replace this command, this string, with the payload that you have got after your lhost or your lport, and the other part of the string or the basis for decode temp mshell, these all remain the same. So I have all these sketches and how you could generate this MSF Venom commands on my GitHub repo. So I would show that as well. before I come, like after I complete this demo, I would show that as well. Now comes the Mac OS part, like the most interesting one, I would say, because a lot of people consider Mac and Linux to be unexploitable, like by basic things. And it's not like there's a flaw in Mac itself. It's how devices are used to trick the machines. And I don't think there's a very strong protection mechanism, because like keyboards are plug and play thing, right? In Mac, there's a caveat that you have to set the string for a particular thing so that Mac recognizes that it's a like verified vendor of a keyboard. But that's also easily available on the internet, so you could easily change those values so that Mac also recognizes it as its own like keyboard. So this is the Mac demo, and in the demo I would also be showing how you could exploit it to get the web camera reverse connection, as I explained in my Twitter tweet as well. So I'm plugging this onto my Mac machine. It's already has the payload that I created on this. So this is the victim machine now, and my attacker machine would be my Linux machine, the other machine, which has been acting as the victim machine by now. So it's taking a revenge on it. So I've connected it. Now it would open the terminal here. So yeah, Spotlight is there. Terminal has opened. Now it's downloading so it has downloaded the OSX or the binary from the victim machine. So I'll be explaining how you could generate this OSX as well. So it's same as MSFN is used here as well. Now I've changed the executable. So you could see that chmod plus x. So I'm making this OSX file as an executable. And then again using the no-hop. So we have used the no-hop in the Linux payload as well as in the like Mac payload as well. So now, so see, the first time you press exit, it shows you that you have running jobs. So you need to press exit again and do a enter there. So that's what I've done. So now you could see that I got a reverse connection on my Linux machine. That was the attacker machine. So if you see the sessions, Metasploit OSX -I. So I have connected. Now I'll try to start the web camera on my Mac machine and see a live stream from there. So you could see the camera is on there, and you could see myself. I was recording the video there. So that was all about the Mac exploitation. So there's a catch here that once you enable the web camera stream on, so you have to give permissions in the Mac. So like in the Android phones, right? Once the app requests a camera access, you need to allow that. So once you do a webcam stream request from your attacker machine, you need to accept it on the Mac. So since it's being executed from the terminal, so it shows that terminal is requesting access for web camera. So you could be intelligent and creative. That's what I was talking. That you could migrate to a process that is more likely to ask for camera. Like suppose you could migrate this to a Zoom call and Zoom, and you would ask that. So it would show on the screen that Zoom is trying to access your camera, and the victim would be like not wise enough, and they would give the access to them. So let me show the Arduino file for this. I think yeah. So this is one.
Asim,
So
just want to give you a heads up that we have 5 minutes left. I hope you'll be
yeah,
able to
it's almost
complete.
done. So yeah, I would just wrap it up. So it's the same thing. So I have just opened the Spotlight here, key space and mod left. Then I've written terminal. I've used the delay as always. Then you press the enter key and you download the OSX payload using the curl, and you create a executable out of that. Then you press the enter key, and then exit is done twice as I've done already. So yeah, these are the challenges. That the first one, device may not work properly, so you need to unplug and plug the device again, because yeah, it's a cheap one. If you had a rubber ducky, you would get the reliability with the cost. So I already got like 4 of these, because there was another problem with like AliExpress is usually delivering this, so these are usually clone of the actual devices. So since the clones are not very reliable, so by at the time that I was ordering around 1.5 year back, so I ordered 3 to 4 devices. So since it were only 100 rupees, so I ordered 5 of them. So if one of them doesn't work, I would be able to do the same thing from another device. What's next? So there are other types of attack like USB harpooning. So instead of this, they would have a USB cable, and it would be like any other cable there. You won't notice any difference, and you could click on these links and go to that. So those cables are like charging cables, and they automatically does that and do all this exploitation thing. So any questions if you have, you could like ask me here, or you could like post me on Twitter as well. Anyway, if you don't have any questions, let me show the repo for this. So this is the repo, and I have all this INO files, Linux, Arduino, MSFN, Mac, and this is the payload part. So that's all from my side, I would say.
Thank you so much, Asim. We don't see any questions in the chat box, but what we can do is we can actually, they can reach out to you on Twitter and they have your GitHub details. For now, everyone, please stay tuned on the channel. We will be live back in 1 minute with Ankit Saini. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.